Not everybody knows that Mitchell's biggest stress every year is babysitting the Sauvignon Blanc. Bevan Cellars is on the name. I take credit for making the wine. Every year Mitchell babysits this in one big tank that has our name on it. And I call Mitchell and I'm like, Mitchell, is the Sauvignon Blanc fabulous every week? Mitchell says, yeah, the Sauvignon Blanc's fabulous. He'll grab a sample, we'll taste it together. I'm like, Mitchell, I don't know that the Sauvignon Blanc is fabulous. Mitchell's like, the Sauvignon Blanc is fabulous. We bottled this wine just a couple weeks ago. 10 days before we're bottling it, he and I are coming up with excuses. We're like, okay, 22 was challenging. The 21 was legendary, maybe the best Sauvignon Blanc we've ever made. What are we gonna do about the 22? There's a lot of malic acid. We're afraid it was gonna be too sharp and angular and acidic. And then all of a sudden we realized, when in doubt, trust dry stack. And what makes this every year so spectacular is the dry stack site in the Italian clone is so fabulous that if you have faith in the excellence that is that combination, the wine's going to eventually find its way. We were flummoxed, I love that word, about the acid level and what we needed to do. And we racked it, we cleaned it up, we put a skirt on it, and she then responded. So what I've always enjoyed about this wine, well, I say enjoy, I enjoyed in years past, it always stresses me out at this stage, is that it starts out always as citrus, and then it starts to move tropical. So when you're tasting it today, Mitchell, are you seeing any tropical notes? What is the fruit file on this? If you had to do a file card of fruits, what would your fruit file be for this wine?
The fruit file that I see that this wine will continue to evolve is it is a sharper structure of brighter notes that will envelop into a longer age of tropical fruits, notes.
No, I'm absolutely with you. So I like how this vintage has a little more malic. The malic is going to take about 2-3 months to really round out. So you're gonna get that piercing intensity right now, which is going to become suppler over a very short period of time. So right now, I think we're more focused on citrus, which is going to grow tropical. And going back in time, I think you need to look at our 16. Our 16 started off as really linear. It ended up being probably the richest we've ever made off of dry stack. And I see this wine following that same trajectory. Right now, it's pinpoint, it's accurate, and I think it's going to become sexy and broader. What when you feel it on the palate, the other thing that I like about this vintage is the back palate weight. I think it's got the push in the thrust on the palate in the back to carry all that acidity. Do you think this is bigger than most of the vintages on the palate?
It's there in that respect where you're right, where the wine is pulling itself back to give more of a balance on front to mid to back. And we do age on the lees. We don't rack the wine until bottling.
So every year I have the privilege of responding to a few customers, a few retailers, and a bunch of restaurateurs about why our Sauvignon Blanc is cloudy. And it's cloudy because we don't fine or filter it. And we don't do that because we want all of the richness in flavor and in textures to be in the bottle. So we could sterile filter it, but we would then be taking out 10 to 15% of the magic that is in this wine. You'd have the same flavor profile, but it wouldn't feel the same. And I think this Sauvignon Blanc, the textures make it so special. And is you're the one who studied viticulture and enology. You were the one who was a scientist at college. So when people say, okay, you can do a light filter and polish it a little bit, what exactly happens when you filter a wine?
Well, you're taking
what is the process?
You're taking out the particulates that are larger in size, and and smaller in size. And so there's probably 3 different filtration sizes. So it's nominal to absolute. And so if you want to get into it, you're taking out yeast and larger solids of the wine. And then you get into the absolute phase where you're taking out bacteria and smaller particles. And at that point, you are removing substrates that affect mid-palate, that flavor.
You're taking the love out of it. You're going from something that is completely natural. Everything in this bottle was part of the fermentation process and came from the vineyard. And if we push it through an absolute filter, we're losing all of those natural things, the probiotics, the proteins, all of the natural occurring healthy things that I think make the wine feel fabulous. And the only thing we gain out of that is what? Clarity?
Clarity. You're removing, what you're saying is fabulousness, you're removing the soul of the wine. And that's what I think we're trying to preserve in the Bevan Cellars Sauvignon Blanc. And our wines are still clarified to a certain point, they're just not filtered. So we're keeping the soul in the Sauvignon Blanc of Bevan Cellars.
When Mitchell, the fruit-file Masotti, speaks, everyone should listen. Beautifully said. Thank you, Mitchell.
Cheers. Salud.
So it's a rare treat for me to sit down with wines after they've been bottled with my winemaking partner, Mitchell Masotti. And today we have our 21 Pinot lineup. And for the first time since we launched it 10 years ago, creating a 1376 elevation and 2114 elevation wine, we've recreated them because there was such magic in the Pinot and the 21 vintage. And so we're just going to taste through the 3 of them, talk about it. And Mitchell, when we were tasting earlier, you seem to think big things about the Petaluma Gap. This is the big boy. What do you love about this wine?
I love the intensity of fruit, like you said, the vintage, the structure. It's got a beautiful sum of all the parts.
It's juicy and huge.
True.
It is. It's caressing. You feel decadence and you feel nurtured and caressed when you drink this
Enveloped
wine.
in the fruit.
Absolutely enveloped in the fruit. This is always a blend of a couple different vineyards. And with Petaluma Gap, I think we're trying to capture the complexity and power that comes with the Petaluma Gap. It's such a cool area. It really starts out at Bodega Bay, and those breezes come through. And you know, when you're at Victoria's house, when you're in Bennett Valley, you see that fog and you feel that cool air. And I think the Petaluma Gap, that big diurnal twist and that cool breeze that cools the fruit down every day, it just gives it an extra layer of an intensity and structure. But it's structured, but it's not a hard wine. I mean, how would you judge the tannins on this compared to most Pinots, especially Pinots of this mass concentration?
Sure, they're integrated, they're present, but like you said, I think those diurnal swings of the temperature of the vineyards, they give the wines extra hang time, so we see a darker, richer layer of fruits to balance those tannin structures.
Yeah, it creates a huge wine with gentle textures. And then 1376, this has always been my baby. 1376 comes from 2 vineyards, and when you look at Sonoma Mountain and you go to the very top, you've got a couple of Fenler vineyards up there where we have Calera and we have Swan clones planted. And as you go down, you get to an 828 clone, which is literally a vampire clone. The clusters grow upwards like a vampire hanging upside down, and they only start to fall over once the clusters have completely sized up, gone through verasion, and the weight will bring them down. And these 2 clones together, these 3 clones together, give us a completely different flavor profile. What do you get in the aromatics of 1376, Mitchell?
Aromatically, it's a dark, rich, dense blue fruit.
She's a beast.
It's a big wine.
She's a beast. She wants to play. She's not hard, but there's a darkness to her. I mean, did you watch Wednesday on Netflix?
Oh, of course.
That girl had a darkness. This wine has a little bit of Wednesday. You get that intensity, and it just has that power, and there's a darkness to it. And I think that's the 828 clone, which always gives wines a slightly meaty quality, and it has that meatiness and that dark, beautiful intensity.
It's a big fruit pop for sure coming out of that glass.
Yeah, that's absolutely yummy. And then going back to the Fendler Vineyards, the one up on top, that's not Dumbledore, it's Helgren.
Right.
And we've somehow named them all after Harry Potter things because the names never made sense to me. So we knew it as Dumbledore, but it's actually Helgren. And when this was planted, Greg Bjornstad took the 2 clones that he had used at Flowers that went into their Moon Select back in the early 90s. And that was a wine that Victoria and I bought a lot of and consumed a lot of. And the Choleric clone is the intense power, and then Swan is beautiful aromatics and refinement. And the 2 together give you a beautiful combination of intensity and complexity. And so with the 2114, Mitchell, which order do you have them in? Is this your 1376?
Correct.
This is okay, cool. All right, I thought you tasted that one. We're on the same page.
I did a switcheroo on you.
Easy to do. Wow, when we first opened this up, I got a big minerality, and I still get it, but now I'm starting to get the floral to come through. It's almost like lavender.
I see a little less oak, where I like that restraint that the wine is still presenting itself as a nice, balanced, succulent, rich Petaluma Gap wine.
See, you use the word succulent. I use the word supple. I like how this is supple. This is 2 drops of baby oil and rubbing the person you love's belly. It has that silky, absolutely seductive quality that on a warm day, and you're making sure the person you love doesn't burn. That's what this feels like on the front of your palate. It's just all of that rich, yummy textural quality.
Everyone needs that level of protection.
And when you buy a bottle of this, you're absolutely going to get it. So, Petaluma Gap, just massive in fruit. 1376, dark, powerful, has that huge fruit pop, but it's got this underlying Wednesday-like quality. 2114, floral, powerful, really sensual. I think the 21s are pretty banging.
These are, I think, the best Pinots we've made in 10 years or so.
It's been a while. Boomba.
Cheers.
So sorry to interrupt. So if you ever see schmutz, Mitchell wants the schmutz. So the schmutz belongs there. If you ever say, oh, this looks a little cloudy, okay, what do we want?
More mid-palate density, richness.
Schmutz and cloudy, thank you.